Trump administration now ramping up their obvious efforts, as we all know, to target political opponents and liberal-leaning groups, this time by doing a major overhaul at the Internal Revenue Service. They plan to install, you're not going to believe this, Trump loyalists, giving the president even more power over who becomes the target of law enforcement and, of course, of tax enforcement. Before we get into that story, what's your first gut feeling about that?
Yeah, so this is one of the worst ones, guys. Because once the person in power starts using the power of the tax collectors and to go after people, it's good night, Irene. Because then you could bankrupt almost all of your political opponents. You say, oh yeah, that was a nonprofit. Oh, we took the nonprofit status away. Oh, you missed the line on your taxes. That's it, you're screwed. And you might even go to jail, right? So this is deeply, deeply troubling. But as usual, somehow Israel gets into this story. What? Okay, well, I'll explain that a little bit later, okay?
All right, let's get into this a little bit. According to reporting out now by the Wall Street Journal, the sweeping changes in the Trump administration at the IRS that they're about to make, that they're on the precipice of making, would allow the agency to pursue criminal inquiries of left-leaning groups more easily, according to people familiar with the matter. The undertaking aims to install allies of President Trump at the IRS Criminal Investigative Division, or IRS-CI, to exert firmer control over the unit and weaken the involvement of IRS lawyers in criminal investigations, officials said. The proposed changes could open the door to politically motivated probes and are being driven by Gary Shapley, an advisor to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. So Shapley has now reportedly told people that he plans to replace Guy Fico, who has been the chief of the investigative unit there for many years, for decades actually. He's also pushing new rules that would speed up criminal probes and subject them to less oversight from the attorneys, from IRS attorneys. So who do they plan to target? Well, you could probably write the rest of this yourself. You didn't need the Wall Street Journal, but listen to this. Shapley has been putting together a list of donors and groups he believes IRS investigators should look at. Among those on the list are the billionaire Democratic donor George Soros and his affiliated groups, according to a senior IRS official and another person briefed on the list. It couldn't be determined upon what grounds Shapley would seek to begin such an investigation. As we know, Donald Trump has had his sights set on George Soros, as he's held out there as kind of a boogeyman for a long time. So Trump previously said on Truth Social that Soros and his son Alex should face federal charges under the RICO Act, and added in a separate interview that the elder Soros should be in jail without offering specific reasons. A senior Justice Department official recently urged several U.S. attorneys' offices to investigate Soros's Open Society foundations. We talked earlier about how his campaign rallies were filled with this sort of vindictive talk. Well, George Soros locking him up was always something, or was part of a refrain there. The IRS CI overhaul is just one part, though, of a larger Trump administration overhaul and effort to investigate left-leaning groups that Trump doesn't like. Trump has ordered Bessent, as the acting IRS commissioner, to refer certain tax-exempt organizations to the Justice Department for further investigation. Bessent has also been directed to use the Treasury's Terrorism and Financial Intelligence Office to examine groups' financial flows and try to trace any illicit funding streams. So, no surprise here, my friend, right? I mean, this is what he said he was going to do. Who's in the target and in the crosshairs here? Not a surprise. Changing the people so to make it easier. What do you think?
Actually, nevertheless, I'm surprised by this one. And the reason is this is.
How can you still be surprised?
No. When he says, "Hey, look, I want both George Soros and his son Alex Soros investigated under the RICO Act. I want them targeted, and I want the elder Soros to be arrested." That's not subtle. I didn't miss that. Okay, and then here they are looking after Soros and his foundations through the IRS. The part that I'm a little surprised by is this is really extreme. Like, this is even more beyond the pale than I would have thought that they would go. And maybe that's me being a little naive. Like, and it's kind of a weird thing to say because I thought they would arrest their political opponents. So how is this more extreme? No, once you take the IRS and say we're not, like, the power of the IRS is massive. It's not 2 or 3 political opponents that you do fake charges on, but remember, they're gonna go through the courts and they're very, very, very likely to be found innocent, right? Now it's gonna mess up their lives and it costs them a lot of money, and it's so disastrous in 1,000 ways. But once the IRS starts doing this, they can target anyone. They can target all their opponents, and then they drain their finances, maybe put them in jail, and then it's easier to get people on taxes because people, like, even if they're being super honest, can make mistakes that you could then go, oh God, you said this deduction was this, but it's actually this, right? And so once you go politicize the IRS, like you're on a fast track to doom. That you no longer have an honest government. And I mean, imagine if the Democrats were in charge. Again, if you're on the right wing or you're independent or you voted for Trump, right? Imagine Democrats go, oh no, it's good. We're not targeting all conservatives by using the IRS. I know that a lot of them think that that's what happened under Obama for like a minute about this one fake scandal. I know you don't think it's fake. We broke that down at the time on the Young Turks. They found out later, and this is what drives me crazy, and none of your right-wing shows ever told you, it turns out they actually targeted liberal groups even a smidge more than conservative groups, so it was not partisan at all, whether they should have done it or not. But again, even if you thought, no, Cenk, I don't believe you, I think Obama was terrible and he did this, and yeah, it was limited, and yes, they withdrew it, and yes, they did both, whatever, but I hated it. Good, I love that you hated it. You should also hate this. It's this same thing, but on steroids. Even if what Obama did was true, right? Even if you're right about that, this is 100 times that. And even if it was just 1 times that, if you hate it under Obama, you should hate it under Trump. So okay, now let's get to the details because these are so important. You can tell bad intent because of what Michael read you in the beginning. They're weakening the power of the lawyers within the IRS. Now, why would you do that? You do that because the lawyers tell you what is illegal and what you can't do. And they don't want to hear what they can't do and what is illegal. They want to do things that are illegal, so that's why they're saying, lawyers, get the hell out of the room, and soon you'll all be fired, okay? And by the way, they did this also at the SEC and other places.
Well, in a way, they've done it at the IRS already by telling the IRS to reduce the number of audits they're doing because they know that all the wealthy people that are in Trump world were being audited, or I shouldn't say all of them, several people being audited were part of Trump world. That by weakening the IRS, now they're weakening the legal side of the IRS. And then earlier they weakened the investigative side. So that's the same kind of politicization of the IRS, just in a default kind of a way.
Think about that double whammy. So like, let's go talk about the IRS. So if you say, okay, guys, we're going to target, get the stinking lawyers out of the room. That's my political opponent, that's my political moment. And by the way, I got 200 of them that are doing nonprofits or PACs or super PACs, etc. We're just gonna rip them to shreds by using the IRS. But also, we're gonna tell the right wing or the Republicans or whoever's on our side, go nuts, there's no more lawyers. We're not gonna look into you guys at all. So you could cheat to hell, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. No one's gonna prosecute. Imagine the Trump administration prosecuting a Republican supporting Trump. Come on, you know that's never gonna happen.
Not a chance.
Please be honest, right? So then, okay. So now you've destroyed a political opposition, whether you like it or not, and you've empowered the others, your side, to cheat. What do you think is going to happen in the next election? They're going to spend $1 gazillion. You're not going to be able to spend any dollars. It's a form of cheating in the elections, let alone destroying the IRS. Okay, and the honesty of our government. Okay, last 2 things that are super important. So that explains the Soros Open Society Foundations. But there's a second part of it, which I didn't know this until recently. Because like people are always, anti-Semitism about Israel, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, wait a minute, the right wing's constantly talking about George Soros, the Jewish billionaire, secretly controlling everyone like puppets, et cetera. I mean, that's supposed to be an anti-Semitic trope. How come nobody ever pushes back against that? Like, I understand the right wing doing it, through the history. There's a history of that, et cetera, right? But why is like ADL? They do a mild pushback on it. AIPAC, all these different parts of the establishment not pushing back on that through all these years. It turns out Soros is sympathetic to the Palestinians. So his religion doesn't matter. If you're anti or pro-Israel is what matters, okay? And you think, okay, well, Cenk, that's a bit much. Hold on, no, this is the part I was referring to. Wall Street Journal reporting, the administration officials sought to use the illegality doctrine, a rule that causes nonprofits to forfeit their status if they break the law. And if they forfeit their status, that could destroy them, right? Because then they can't take in money in the way that they did for a nonprofit. For example, they explained, the administration officials at the IRS argued that campuses roiled by pro-Palestine protests should lose their status, arguing that allowing such demonstrations was a form of support for terrorism. So you heard that right. Not if you're anti-Israel, not if you're anti-Semitic, but if you're just pro-Palestine and you allowed that freedom of speech on a college campus, they're gonna call you a terrorist, or they're gonna call the university a terrorist, strip you of your nonprofit status, and destroy the university entirely. I mean, if that's not an attack on freedom of speech, I don't know what is. That's insanity. And what we're destroying people through the IRS for opposing a foreign government? You see what I'm saying, guys? Be careful what you wish for. If you think, oh, it's okay, if the IRS is on my side when it's cheating. Is it? Have you ever criticized Israel? Have you ever criticized someone you shouldn't have criticized? Well, the IRS can do similar things to you. Because once this starts, it's super hard to stop.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm in a good spot because I criticize you, and they're definitely not going to come after me for criticizing it. So
that's a good form of protection. You think about it. Oh yeah, the internet did think about it. That's why the entire internet is criticized.
I do want to just go into this very briefly. So we've talked about all this targeting and the targeting that's happening. It's not ending now. Just yesterday, the president was in front of his attorney general and the head of the FBI, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, respectively, and he was saying, I'm going after Jack Smith. I'm not done. Listen.
FBI Director and Attorney General here today. Jim Jordan has asked Jack Smith to appear in front of the House Judiciary.
You mean deranged, Jack? He's a deranged individual, yeah?
He has asked him to.
Well, they should. I'm surprised it takes so long. We're talking about violent crime. What about the crime against a political opponent? That's what we have to talk about too.
We'd like to understand the full extent to which the Biden-Harris Justice Department weaponized federal law enforcement. What do you think the committee will find out, Mr. Smith?
I think it was the worst weaponization of a political opponent in the history of the world, let alone this country. And I hope that everybody's, they're involved in it. I'm not. I'm the one that had to suffer through it and ultimately win. But what they did was criminal. Deranged Jack Smith, in my opinion, is a criminal.
His opinion is a criminal. The president wasn't done. Let's listen to this because he's got a list and he's checking it twice. Here he is.
Deranged Jack Smith, in my opinion, is a criminal. And I noticed his interviewer was, I think that was Weissman. And I hope they're going to look into Weissman too. Weissman's a bad guy. And he had somebody in Lisa who was his puppet, worked in the office really as the top person. And I think that she should be looked at very strongly. There was tremendous criminal activity having to do. If we don't have fair elections in this country, we're not going to have a country. I hope they're looking at Shifty Schiff. I hope they're looking at all these people. And I'm allowed to find out. I'm allowed to, I'm in theory the chief law enforcement officer. But I have a very good, talented group. This is about something else. But I hope they're looking at political crime because there's never been so much political crime against a political opponent as what I had to go through.
He's saying this in front of the director of the FBI and the attorney general, essentially emasculating the law enforcement branches of our government in doing that. He's talking about Andrew Weissman, who was a prosecutor, an investigator on the Russia crisis, and Lisa Monaco, who was the deputy attorney general under President Biden.
Yeah, so he says while they're sitting there, Jack Smith and Andrew Weissman and that Lisa chick, she should definitely be prosecuted, right, guys? Right, guys? Like the attorney general and the head of the FBI, et cetera, are supposed to be looking at the law, not politics. They're supposed to see if there's a crime and then prosecute that crime. They're not supposed to say, oh, that is a political opponent. Let's see if we can dig up something on him because the president ordered us to. That is wildly illegal, wrong, unconstitutional. Everything.
He's taking their autonomy away. They're autonomous departments, and he's saying this is what we're going to do. And like you said, essentially saying it in front of these two people who are nodding along as they always do.
Yeah, and I'm always amused by the irony of him saying he's deranged. I mean, there is somebody acting deranged. I'm not sure that it's Jack Smith. So, okay, last thing is, guys, if you say now, no, you're being ridiculous. You think that they're just going to prosecute him because the president said he's their political opponents and didn't like him? All right, let's see if they wind up doing it to Jack Smith and Andrew Weissman and Lisa. Okay, just like when he said John Bolton, and they indicted John Bolton today, James Comey, Letitia James, he did the same exact thing with them, and they all got indicted on the most trumped up charges, including where prosecutors, right-wing prosecutors were like, I'm not doing this. This is the wrong, illegal nonsense. I'm not prosecuting someone because you don't like them. And he's like, you're fired. I got my personal attorney who come and, okay, oh, well, she's an expert? No, she's never tried a single criminal case, but she's the only one that'll listen to me. Yeah, because you're asking her to break the law, right? Yeah, totally. So that's the situation we're in, and that's a disaster. Look, it's at some point, there has to be electoral consequences. Otherwise, he's just gonna keep on going until there is no democracy.
Yeah. I was on a subway with a friend of mine, and Lisa Monaco was on the subway, and I said to my friend, that's Lisa Monaco, and he said to me, you're a loser.
You know, that Lisa lady.
Right, okay. She should be indicted very strongly.
Did you go up and tell her that?
I told her that.
All right, it's all fun and games until she gets arrested. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.